It's on page 106. Yeah, we'll get there. When you hear, when the real stuff comes, you'll hear me. You hear me now?
And I have my hearing aids on.
What was that? You good? You're good. Parshas Chayei Sara. So, I'm going to start off with a question. We're going to start off with a question, and it's someone's job to be sure that we don't end the shir with without addressing this question. On page 112, and if you don't have a comment, you're going to have to believe me, that when Eliezer, the servant of Avraham, finally meets Rivka or Alta Baba, right? And obviously this is a significant moment because we are in meeting, we are being introduced to one of the imahot, the mothers of our nation, and we want to know a little bit about her, right? What school she went to, right? What seminary she went to, degree, right? What kind of family. We want to know a little bit about the mishpacha of Rivka. And there's some disappointing news, by the way. The yichus was, it seemed to be a little bit problematic there, but we don't talk about that. It's under the carpet. But when the Torah decides to share with us a few of the attributes of this woman, of Rivka, so the Torah tells us the following. Vehana'ara. So ready for some description about Rivka? Tovat mareh me'od. So you want a pasuk 112, pasuk Tes Zayin. Is that good? You have Chumashim, so you do have what pasuk will give you. Tes Zayin, you see it? Got it? Page 112 Tes Zayin, or chapter 24, verse 16. So what are we told about her? What are we told about her? Na'ara tovat mareh me'od. Are you satisfied with Alta Bava being introduced as a Sheina Yiddish Meidel? I am. I'm okay with it. I mean, it's a nice attribute, Hashem Yiddish Meidel, right? And it's shidduchim anyway, so it doesn't make a difference if it's true or not, but, right? But it's good information. But the next two statements are ones that we would ask for a little bit of clarification. Why does the Torah have to state this? Betula, so she's a virgin. Okay, I think we could still accept that. Some invitations in this day and age, especially in Hasidic communities, it is something that is stated and traditionally was valued. Some people stick to it, others are less comfortable with it. It's interesting to note, to monitor what invitations decide to share this information and which ones not. Fine. But then the Torah adds, Ve'ish lo yeda'a. Ve'ish lo yeda'a. So let's translate that. No man had known her. No man had known her. So what does that mean? So some commentators who are closer to Pshat say she wasn't one who would be hanging out. It happens to be that this day she went out, but she wasn't like known. She stayed home more. Fine. But then there's Rashi that is based on rabbinic tradition. And he shares with us the following, that you should know that during that period of time, young women would want to keep their status of a virgin, but nevertheless, they wanted to experiment a little bit. So they had a way, without getting into precise details, of still having relations and retaining the status of a betulah. So therefore, the Torah wants to tell us that you should know, when it comes to Rivka, to Mama Rivka, she was not just a betulah, but even ish lo yeda'a, that she avoided any such contact with men. And this is what the Torah shares with us about her. The rest of the information is chesed, which is nice. Is chesed, we're big into that, and obviously her behavior indicates that she's worthy. But my question is basically, why does the Torah have this great desire and need to share this piece of information? Okay, that's question number one. Okay. Question number two, once we're starting with questions. So this, I'm not going to ask everyone to turn all the way to the book of Vayikra. But in Vayikra there's a verse, in the section where the Torah, this is Parshat Kedoshim, page 668. And the Torah is talking about a list of prohibited sexual relations, okay? And this is something that we as Klal Yisrael have had, these Gedorim have had these fences that genders, when they intermingle, it should be within awareness. In some communities, it's less of intermingling. But we all have the same agenda, this desire that we retain, this sanctity. It is fundamental for us as a nation. And it presents a list of relations that are unacceptable. And among them, I'll read to you a verse, and this is verse 17. When a person takes his sister, okay, a man shall take his sister, the daughter of his father, or the daughter of his mother, and he shall see her nakedness, which is a relation, and she shall see his nakedness. So now I'm going to turn back to the Hebrew, okay? Vera'at ervata, he sees her nakedness, she sees his nakedness. There's a relationship here. The Torah tells us this is unacceptable. This is awful. What is this called in Lashon HaKodesh? Chesed hu. Again, chesed hu. This is in the Torah. It's considered a chesed, and it's a terrible chesed. So you look at the translation immediately, and how do they translate chesed hu? Right, Balkora will agree with me. It does appear there, right? How does it translate? It's a disgrace. I have no problem with labeling it a disgrace, but why use that word? Chesed, our whole religion is based on chesed, olam, chesed, chesed, chesed. And here you have to go ahead and use the exact same word and tell me that it means a disgrace. So this is something that's going to need some level of clarification. So, but now let's really understand what the Parsha is about. There's a contrast here. The Parsha starts off with the passing of Sarah, and Avraham Avinu determined to go ahead and acquire for her a land, and he has a detailed interaction with a person by the name of Ephron, Ayin Pei Resh Nun, and tradition is not kind to him, and the text itself indicates that this is an individual with some significant problems. What's his problem? So let's turn to page 106 and read a little bit about what's happening here. Avraham Avinu is determined that he wants to get this area, the edge of the field, the cave of Machpelah, and Ephron has some deep desires here. He has priorities. He has some priorities. And the focus of his priorities are basically himself. He's interested in himself. And what he wants is not just money. His desire, his purpose in life, and the fact that for 3,500 years later we could go ahead and talk about Ephron, we know that number one, he has a great desire and interest in money. Fine. Number two, he wants covet. What is covet exactly? What's honor? At that period of time, Avraham Avinu is recognized as a leader. And this is something quite incredible. Think about a person that arrived in this land, and within a couple of decades, he is labeled as a Nisi Elokim Ata Betochenu. You are really a representative of the higher being. We see something in you that's great. To interact with Avraham Avinu, right? To be one that is honored in this exchange is something Ephron deeply desires. On the other hand, if he walks in and he expresses his interest in only making money, there's nothing great there. So Ephron has this incredible way of interacting, and let's turn to verse 10 on page 106. And we are told, Ephron, he was sitting there in the midst of the children of Chet, and Ephron, after hearing that Avraham Avinu has this need and desire for the land, so what does he do? He says in verse 11, this is already page 108, listen, Avraham Avinu, no, my Lord, lo Adoni, shma'eni, listen here. Hasadeh natati lach. Ephron makes it clear to Avraham Avinu, I'm not going to take money from you, right? In other words, we are people, we're honorable people, we have a relationship, I respect you, you respect me. I am not going to be taking a penny. Hasadeh natati lach. And you should know, hame'areh asher bo lecha netatia. And I'm going to give you the cave as well. Now, if you listen carefully, what Avraham Avinu really asked for was only the cave. And what is he offered here? A field and a cave. So Ephron is a very generous person on the surface, meaning he doesn't want to take money, He doesn't want to take money. And in addition, he's going to add also the field that is connected. Now, Avram Avinu is very grateful. And Avram Avinu responds, listen, Natati kesef hasadeh kach mimeni. I already designated the money. I want to give it. And I already set it aside. I want to bury my wife in land that is clearly mine. And no one's going to challenge ownership in the future. No one's going to ever challenge if the Hebron is an integral part of the land of Israel, right? So therefore, Avram Avinu puts down the money. It's his. Ephron responds in verse 14 and 15. Listen, Avram Avinu, we're close. I don't want to take money. Our relationship is so good that I am willing to give you this field for free. I'm willing to give you a field that costs 400 shekel for free. So this is what's taking place in verse 15. Eretz arba'a me'ot shekel kesef beini u'beincha mahi. You know, Avram Avinu, we're peers, a land which the price is 400 shekel. It's nothing for us to give one another. And therefore go ahead and just take this land. Avraham Avinu understands, and in verse 16, Va'ishma Avraham. Avraham comprehends, you really understand what Ephron is communicating. You know what Ephron is communicating. If I go ahead, I've mentioned this in the past, right? I go shopping for you in the supermarket, and you ask me to pick up something in no frills, and I come back, and I say, here it is. And you say to me, how much was it? And you say, don't worry about it, right? What is $16.39? Like, what is it? So you understand very well that if I give you the precise amount in pennies which don't exist, what does that mean? That I want to be reimbursed to the fullest extent. And this is what's basically happening here. That Ephron says, Eretz 400 shekel kesef, what's the big deal for me to give you land that's worth 400? Now, why was it worth so much? Well, you have to remember, Ephron, when Avraham only asks for the Ma'arat HaMachpelah, he adds a field. Right? On TV, when you buy one of those plastics that you don't need, and for $19.99, you're not going to get one set. You're going to get 4 sets of things you will not use more than once, maybe even not that. Right? In other words, they add to the package, they make it more significant, they make it more valuable, pay more. Welcome to Ephron. This is our Ephron. Avraham gives the money, the 400 shekel kesef. We talked in the past about Ephron was known as a Ra'ain. Ra'ain, he wanted the max. The numerical value we talked about in the past of Ra'ain, if you do the Gematria, is 400. It's like the max. In Hebrew and Gematria, the taf, the last letter, the numerical value is 400. A person who wants always 400, right, is considered a person who wants the max. He wanted the max. Ephron himself, when spelled without a vav, as it appears a few times in this section, Ayin Pei Resh Nun, is also the numerical value of 400. Ephron wants everything. He wants the honor, he wants the money. So this is what is appearing in the first part of the parsha, and then there's a contrast. And then we move over to Rivka, right? And Rivka is the complete opposite. And what do I mean the complete opposite? You know, there are events we experience in life. I think we've been, unfortunately, in the past to Levias, and we've been at, well, but you know, there's a cycle, and we've been to weddings as well. When it comes to a Levaya, the chesed we do, chesed shel emes. There's no interest in reward. The person that we honor, the person that we go ahead and we bury, we're not going to be getting any thank yous, right? It's a chesed shalem, it's a pure chesed. And it's done. And there's some incredible people throughout the world that put a lot of energy and effort into chesed shalem. As yesterday there was a speaker in town, as a Rabbi Milevsky Zone, who runs, he's an expert in matters of Chevra Kadisha. He is really a person that does a tremendous amount in this area of chesed shel emes. I remember years ago, he shared, we had him, I remember he was by us in Buffalo and then in Memphis, and he shared a story how when the Pan Am 103, if you remember, there was a Pan Am flight that flew over Lockerbie, Scotland, and was blown up by, it was Libyan terrorists at the time, and there were, a lot of, over 200 people died. And there was something like, I don't know if the number was 17. There was a number of Jews on the flight. A number of Jews, active people that were significant in the New York Kehillah. So I don't remember, I have a record of the numbers. The numbers were something like that. There were, let's say, 17 Jews on the flight. And they were able to recover out of the over 200 passengers, 34. 34 bodies were recovered. Out of this, so statistically, if you have, let's say, a flight of 200 people and 17 are Jews, right, and you recover 34 bodies, so statistically, what you would say something like two Jews would be, out of the 34 bodies, and there were 17 of them were Jewish.
Wow.
That's what happened, he said. And he said, and again, he was there, he was involved. And he mentioned that there was a New York Jew that was very active in the Kehillah there, and they were able. He says that the body was intact, the only one, like completely intact. They were able to do. So he says like this is what we were about. Chesed shel emes. This was our goal. We went in with the team. We went in. You had Zaka. You had Chesed shel emes is everything. There's nothing. You don't walk in to a Levayan. You don't walk in to a Shiva with any selfish intentions. In other words, there's a general rule that we talk about often, that when a person walks in to a Shiva, you're not supposed to be curious. Don't ask any question because you're curious. Why? Because when a person is curious, what's your interest? I want information. I want to walk into the Shiva house with lacking information. I want to walk out with something. You're familiar with the term that you don't take things from a Shiva house, which people consider it very, very holy. What's even more holy than that is not to walk in with an intention to take things out, meaning an ego boost, for example, right, to feel good about yourself because I sounded so smart, more information. I was always curious about them, how much money they have. That's not how you walk in. What is a Shiva? What is, when you are dealing with such situations? Chesed shel emes. There's simply one interest there. Interest is, what can I do for them? What do they need? I'm not going to ask one question. I'm not going to make one statement that's unnecessary. I'm only going to be focusing on what they need. Not always, no two people are alike, obviously. But that's our intention, that's our goal. That's how we do Chesed Shel Emes. And what does the Torah tell us? Who are we dealing with when Avraham Avinu is focused and we have this first Jewish burial? Who does he have to interact with? In Ephron. Ephron is the complete opposite. What's his interest? Not just the money, but the honor, right? That's Ephron. That's what the Torah wants to starts off this parsha. This is a parsha that we talk about chesed. This is a parsha that we talk about concern for the welfare of others. And it starts off with this significant contrast that, number one, don't be in Ephron. At a time when the whole focus is about someone else, don't be in Ephron. Then compare Ephron to Rivka, right? Now, marriage, believe it or not, in its core, there is something selfish in marriage. Not a good thing, but in its core. Because let's be honest. When the young boy, right, decides that he wants to go ahead and meet a girl, or the young girl wants to meet a young boy, is it really that they have this deep drive to go ahead and build a Jewish home? Obviously they do. But is there something else playing a little bit of a drive in the relationship there? I sure hope so, because that's the way the world works. Right? There is a drive. Right? Kadosh Baruch Hu obviously created the world with this drive. There's nothing wrong with it, by the way. And if the drive doesn't exist, or in other words, there's a story they would share often in yeshivas, was that there was a young boy in a yeshiva that would hang out at parties that were of mixed gender. Hang out at parties and would come back to the yeshiva at night, which is not the norm, by the way, right? That he would go ahead at night, go, I don't know if it was a bar or some kind of party, and come back to yeshiva and sit down and learn. So the mashkiach of this yeshiva, his name is Rabbi Milevsky, an old man, walks over to the young boy and says to him, you're a yeshiva student. You're supposed to focus on your studies, on your spiritual development. You're not looking for a shidduch at this point right now. Why are you hanging out with the Meidalach, right? And the young boy responded, I'm not affected by these things, right? I don't have those desires. I'm not affected. I can sit and learn. It doesn't have an impact on me. So the Mashgiach, Rebbe, upon and really, okay, so give me your name and your mother's name, and I'll daven for you. Because if you don't have such desires, something, it's not the way it should be, right? Desires are normal. It is very, very normal to have, and they are selfish. You have to channel them, right? Even eating, by the way. I am hungry. If I channel it, I can do some incredible things. I can make brachos when I eat. I could eat on Shabbos and Yom Tov. There's a lot of good things to do with food, but in its core, there's something that is a need. We are humans, right? Like the famous chassid that comes to the Rebbe crying that my zun is meshuga, right? My zun is going crazy. Why is my zun meshuga? He's doing some shrekel things. He's no longer a Torah yid. That was meshuga. What do you mean meshuga? Well, he's dancing with the Meidalach, right? And he's eating chazer. So the Rebbe explained to him that you should know it's a problem, but don't call him meshuga. Meshuga would be if he is eating the Meidalach and dancing with the chazer, right? But if all he's doing is eating chazer and dancing with the Meidalach, then meshuga, he has taiva, he has desires. Okay. Now, desire itself, when it plays its role in marriage, is something that is good. There's a statement in the Talmud that, there was a major shift in our history between the First Temple period and the Second Temple period. When in the First Temple period, the prophets are bemoaning the fact that the people of Israel are extremely attracted to Avodah Zarah. It was like a drive. We really don't fully comprehend it. But they had this incredible drive to pull something out of the pocket, like today we're addicted to our phones. In those days, they had an addiction to some kind of pagan images. There are midrashim that tell us that even when they were punished by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they were still pulling out yiratan, those things that they feared, from their pockets. As a child, I had difficulty understanding it because in the coloring books that I would get from school, Avraham Avinu broke the idols of his father. They were nice-sized idols, correct? And I always had difficulty understanding the midrashim that tell us that they pulled these avodah zarah out of their pockets. How did they fit in the pocket? This was my challenge as a child, because in the coloring books, they were big, right? So how are did they have? So eventually, in one of the museums I visited in Israel, and they did find these small little idols that they worship. They had pocket-sized idols. In other words, take it with you. Take God with you in your pocket. You never know. You might need it. So they had small avodah zarahs, and that was their desire. Now, this desire was a very strong desire. By the Second Temple period, no issue. They had other issues. They hated one another. Sinat Chinam. We had our own new Jewish problems. What happened to this strong urge of avodah zarah? So it went through some significant decline, it appears. And we attribute it to great people, members of the Great Assembly, prophets who turned to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And they say, you know what, you got to change things. This Avodah Zarah urge is really creating a problem. And kill this desire, this spiritual force, put an end to it. And it occurred. And it's very logical that as it declined and there was a void and humanity was searching for something in the centuries after that Avodah Zarah came to an end, you know what they filled it in? You know what took over that? That it is true, but as something to worship, Christianity, there was a void that existed. There was a void that existed. But at the same time, we are told that once the rabbi sensed that, you know what, our prayers were successful in putting an end to Avodah Zarah, let's turn to the Almighty that He should put an end to the urge of what? Sexual attraction. In other words, that too creates a problem. So the Talmud notes that after they prayed, and this is more of a midrash, what happened was that they weren't able to find any eggs in the land of Israel. Meaning, their message is a quite simple one. We need this desire, right? This desire, this drive that exists, that brings young couples together. It's an amazing thing. It's something that is good. as Ramosha Feinstein said, De belot ava, if we do not have this desire, lo haya efshar lekayem yeshuva olam. You know that the Almighty has a deep interest in every species existing. You know that if you ever travel somewhere, and some people have traveled to this island, I think it's in South America, Galapagos. You've been there? Interesting. So they have incredible species there. I was speaking to a student in chat, and he mentioned that he was there. His parents took him a fancy trip. They took him there, and he was able to watch this bird called the bluefoot, the booby bird. It has this odd name that has this dance. You can watch National Geographic. That's probably the closest I'm going to get to such a bird, right? Unless they bring it into local zoo. You ever see this? You're into nature too. You've been there?
No, but I've seen it.
You've seen it. Okay, you've seen it. Incredible. They dance. In other words, so you ask yourself, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the human, he wants these species to exist. Okay? And they have, if you go to West Florida, we talked about the rosette spoonbill, different type of pink bird, or if you can see a flamingo. Kadosh Baruch Hu wants these species to exist. So when you ever merit to see something incredible in nature, there is a bracha, you could say. But you have to realize and meditate that this is something that the Creator desires. How much more so does the Creator desire humans? Because, we believe that humans are more significant than animals. All humans. HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires the human race. How much more so, Chavivim Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu desires those people that recognize Him and talk about Him and recognize the importance of Creator and nature and tradition, which we call Klal Yisrael, correct? So now, we value Yishuv Olam, we value a settled world. Therefore, this desire is an important one. Now, all that is to tell us that Shidduch time is a time there is self-interest, and here we have the contrast. Rivka. What's her interest? Only what the guest needs. So here we have the contrast. When a Levi is a time you don't think about yourself. When burial is a time you don't think about yourself. Look at the Ephraim. When marriage time is when you do think about yourself, how you look, right? How you interact, your personal needs. Here we have an incredible woman that is really needed very much so for a Yitzchak. Yitzchak, we view him as one who is more spiritual, not interacting with society. Only later on does he start emulating his father with interacting with others. He needs this outgoing woman to go ahead and create a family that we call Klal Yisrael. So this is the contrast that we talk about. Now, with that, Rivka needs a little bit of education too. Rivka needs some level of education. Why does Rivka need some level of education as well? So there is a well-known statement in Pirkei Avot. If a person says, Shali, Shalach, V'shelcha, Shali. Okay? There are people that think what's mine is mine, yours is yours. So we can tell them this is domites, we call it, right? But if let's say a person says there are no boundaries, right? Whatever is mine is yours. Whatever is yours is mine. So the Mishnah tells us that we label such a person that does not understand that there are boundaries, that there are things that I own, and there are things that you own. The person who says, Shali shalcha, that which is mine is yours, and that which is yours is mine, Am ha'aretz. Meaning, Am ha'aretz, he is a person, there's some goodness there, because a person that is involved in the land, right, is trying to develop even though in rabbinic circles, when you go ahead and label something, amoretz, right? You've heard the term, I'm sure, over the years. It is not a compliment, but there's something fine there. It means that he's involved in developing the land. He's lacking wisdom, right? Lacking an understanding of purpose, but nevertheless, Amaharetzi. So to quote one of the great commentators, Rabbeinu Yonah, you should know such a person is not a bad person. He's interested that humanity should have ahava beinehem. He's interested in people interacting with one another. It's very important, by the way, that people interact. When we have a gathering and you interact with people and you say a kind word, they say a kind word to you, a healthy shul experience. You ever think about it? What's a healthy Shabbos shul experience? So number one, davening is important, right? Studying some Torah is important. But there's Torah, there's avoda, there's chesed. And during a kiddush, you can do some chesed too, right? If you have some positive things to say to someone, you uplift someone's spirit, you interact. When people walk home, especially those who are in need of some emotional boost, shul could be some incredible experience, right? In some situations, I've interacted with people that have told me that it was a young lady, and she said that she grew up that her mother, every Shabbos before going to shul, to gravel. In other words, it was such a churning and overwhelming experience, because in that shul, right, the women have to show off their latest purchases and the latest garments and latest a hat, or what we would call a funny hat, and therefore there was so much tension and concern about what someone else says so that's an awful shul experience. I don't think you daven too much if that's what you're only thinking about. I don't think you tune in too much to the Torah that's being given. The good shul experience is there's an interaction. So shali shalcha shalachcha shali, it has some goodness there, says Rabbeinu Yonah. However, lo mechochma, it's lacking something. It's lacking wisdom. What is it lacking? It is lacking the concept of boundaries. When I think everything you own, right? If I go into your purse and take whatever I do desire, I go into your office and I take out a pen and paper and whatever I do desire, and I would be more than happy that you do it in my office as well. There's something lacking there when it comes to boundaries. We have to know our boundaries, okay? And our concern with Rivka, and she's going to need some education. Why? We have a concern that she is a socialist. In other words, she does a tremendous amount of chesed. No question about it. Right? She's willing to give. But the problem is, maybe she is lacking an understanding of the concept that if someone owns something, you don't cross those boundaries. You ever have a situation, by the way, that you visit someone, let's say in Israel, okay, nothing against anyone in any country. You visit someone in Israel, and they welcome you into their home. And they make it very, very clear that anything in the kitchen you could take. Feel free, and they mean it. They actually mean it. And you spend there 3-4 days, you have a wonderful experience, you interact with them, wonderful. 2 months later you get a call, Shalom, אנחנו באים לביקור, ולראות את כל Canada, because Israelis know Canada much better than Canadians, from PEI to Vancouver, right? They know the country well. אפשר להישאר אצלכם ל3 שבועות? In other words, can we spend 3 weeks by you? And they have never happened to you. Okay, so I'm not saying, the idea is that sometimes people who welcome you into their home, and for them they would give anything, at times they have the same expectation from you. You do the same. And they won't know the boundaries. Now, you might be a little bit of a different personality. You're happy to have them. You're happy to welcome them. But when they come into your bedroom and they borrow a tie, because in Israel they don't have ties, and they took your tie right as you're ready to go to shul, that already is a little bit beyond. We all have our boundaries. So this is something that there is a concern. We have a little bit of a concern when people do not understand that there are boundaries. Have you ever read a little bit about the kibbutz movement? Kibbutzim. It's coming to an end, really. The kibbutz, already by the mid-1980s. But there's a lot of literature about kibbutzim, the children of kibbutzim. There's a lot of documentaries. I was looking, if you read up, it's very, very fascinating, the kibbutz philosophy. And among the issues they had was the fact that, number one, the philosophy is that you don't own anything. Everything belongs to the kibbutz. So when your mishpacha came from America and brought you some nice toothpaste, it doesn't belong just to you, it belongs to everyone, right? It's communal. But you know what problems they had there in the area of promiscuity, right? About who the father is really. There were some questions about many people that are the products of kibbutz. And I remember watching a footage of like this old individual going through pictures of different men and different women and going through the list of who had a relationship with who, right? It was a problem there. Why was it a problem? if you do not have an understanding that there are boundaries, that there's something that's mine and not yours, that problem in matters that relate to property will go beyond that and make its way into areas that we really understand as Jews that don't belong to others. The Gedorim, the guidelines, the boundaries are gone. And you read a little bit about, with all due respect to Golda Meir, a little bit about her life, right? Next time you are in Israel and you take a street called David Remez, you know where that is? It's next to the Begin Center, right? Tachana Rishona David Remez. Read a little bit about her and him, and there's a little bit of history there. It's all part of this. What do you mean? We're a society. We're one. Shali shalcha shalcha shali. So that's what I call a problematic chesed. A chesed is a big problem. That you give everything to someone else. What do you mean? They need it. They need it. So obviously this clarifies in Vayikra, when there's a brother and sister, right? Brothers and sisters could have a wonderful relationship. But when they don't understand that the nakedness is not something you share with one another, what are they violating? It is a bad form of chesed, chesedu. Chesed could be a disgrace if you don't know the boundaries. Chesed could be a disgrace. And therefore also, when it comes to Rivka, and she is chesed, I mean, this is an incredible thing that it was within her, that a stranger walks in, and there are animals there. Sensitivity to animals is fundamental to us as Jews. Right? We talk about this often. That when a person has a natural love of animals, it is a sign of a good person. It is a sign of a good person. Now, it could be misused, meaning when you forget that the dog is not as important as a person. Or it's a problem when a person jumps in. There are heroes that jump in to save dogs and they put their life in danger. Okay? It comes from a good place, but with all due respect, you have to understand that there are priorities. But a desire, and on the negative side as well, one who could hurt an animal is going to, in turn, not be sensitive to a person as well. We know this. Enough studies to prove that. Rivka is chesed. Eliezer have to drink. Gam ligmalecha ishav. I'm going to take care of your camels as well. But the Torah has to make it very clear that yes, this is a woman of chesed, but she knew some boundaries. So back to page 112. And she's introduced as a na'ara, that is tovat mareh me'od. Okay? But she knew her boundaries. Betula. Ish lo yeda'a. She knew that her body is not something that you go ahead and do quote-unquote chesed with. That's what the Torah spells out. We're going to introduce a woman of chesed, but she got it right. Worry not, she is not a socialist. She was not a member of a kibbutz. That's what we're being told. Now, there's some significant education, nevertheless, that Eliezer brings with him. Eliezer brings with him for this journey, looking for a woman of chesed. You have to remember that there was an understanding. What does Yitzchak need? A wife that can interact with people, to inspire people. And how do you inspire people? With chesed, right? We all know that. And there are good stories of people that became connected due to the fact that they were invited to a kugel, due to the fact that they were interact. Chesed can really connect people. It has its positive, it has its negative. So let's identify what tools of education were used by Eliezer. So turn to page 110. 110.
Which passage?
110. Pasuk Yud. Pasuk Yud. Shlishi. So Eliezer is ready for his mission. He's ready for his mission. And Avraham Avinu indicates, find someone that is worthy. That's a good ring. Find someone that is worthy for Yitzchak. Ready for Yitzchak? No, it's fine, it's fine. You gotta give it, at least it's a good ring. So, ready for Yitzchak. So what is Vaikacha Eved? What does he take with him? Asara Gemalim, 10 camels. Migmalei Adonav. And for the rest of the Parsha, there's a tremendous focus on the Gmalim. Tremendous focus. We talked in the past 18 times. The camels. They barely appear earlier in the Torah, but this is the Parsha of the camel, right? For those of you who, none of you did, but you grew up with Sesame Street. I grew up with this program was sponsored by the letter B, for example. So this Parsha is really the Parsha of a Gamal. We talked about a Gamal. Gamal, Gemilut Chesed, how it relates to one another. The Gamal has the ability to drink so much water that for a week and a half, 2 weeks, could be walking, no need to take care of itself, it takes care of others. Gamal is really the symbol of Chesed. Beautiful, fits so well into this Parsha. But there's one other detail here. The Torah needs to tell us, Vaikach Eved Asara Gemalim, and then it adds, Migmalei Adonav. Now think about it. Eliezer is running the household of Avraham Avinu. He's in charge of everything. And as a result, everything that he owns or everything that he's going to bring will obviously be belonging to Avraham Avinu. So why on earth does the Torah need to tell us that you should know that Eliezer takes Asara Gemalim? Who do they belong to? Migmalei Adonav. What's the significance? So there's a Rashi, and this is a Rashi that is really giving us pshat, that you should understand. People were able to identify the camels of Avraham. Why? Avraham Avinu was extremely sensitive that his camels should never eat or drink from that which belongs to others. So they were muzzled. And therefore, later on, according to Rashi, when they had to be opened, when the Torah tells us that eventually food was given to them by Rivka's family, so we are told that what did Eliezer have to do? By Patach, right, he had to remove the muzzle. And Avraham Avinu's animals were identified. Avraham Avinu there was a significant message there. Avraham Avinu interacts with society, talks about God, talks about that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then they realize that this man has sensitivity, that he should never take anything from anyone if it's not given wholeheartedly, and his animals should not take from anyone. There was a message there. There was a message of respecting that which belongs to others. Even if you are a person of chesed. Avraham Avinu was a person of chesed. Avraham Avinu was a person that gave everything, welcomed people. But although he was comfortable to say, Shali, Shulcha, you're welcome. You're welcome to my home. My tent is open. I welcome people. I inspire people. I'm concerned for people. I look out for guests. At the same time, his camels always had the muzzle. Always sensitivity that his property should never take from someone else. That's Avraham Avinu. And guess who needed to interact and learn and be inspired from those camels? The future wife of Yitzchak. And therefore she interacts with the camels because they had an agenda here, they had an interest here, that Rivka should learn. Chesed is what you are about. But be careful, don't make it a kibbutz chesed. Don't make it a chesed that has no boundaries. Don't make it a chesed that you feel, if I'm willing to give anything to everyone, everyone should be willing to give me. There are boundaries, and the camels of Avraham Avinu are the teachers of these boundaries, and therefore she interacts with them, and therefore she is the one that connects, and therefore they make this appearance in this parsha. So it's a parsha that inspires us to do chesed, inspires us to think about others, inspires us to understand that even within chesed there's a Jewish way of chesed, and that is an understanding that boundaries do exist, and that is how we learn from camels, from Rivka, and all the personalities of this parsha. Okay, perhaps we'll say some Tehillim. Okay, it's not actually done, so we'll say Kuf Lamed. So it's not we're not sending anyone up to the other side of the because we're just going to say one Tehillim. It's Kuf Lamed. If you have a sitter there.